Have you ever been home alone, convinced that the creak of the floorboards was just the house settling, only to feel that icy prickle on the back of your neck, telling you otherwise? This story comes from a young woman who shared her experience online, back when she was just a teenager navigating the early days of the internet. I was about 13, staying up way too late on a school night while my parents were out at some dinner party. The house was quiet, that kind of heavy silence that presses in on you, broken only by the hum of my old desktop computer in the corner of my bedroom. I was chatting on MSN with a bunch of online friends, kids I'd met through games and forums scattered across the world. One of them, this guy from what I thought was Europe, was always online at odd hours, and we'd talk about stupid stuff like school and movies. That night, as I typed away, munching on chips and sipping soda, he suddenly messaged something that made my blood run cold. Those chips look good, but you should drink more water instead of that soda. I froze, staring at the screen. I hadn't mentioned eating anything. My webcam was plugged in. I always left it connected for video calls, but I hadn't turned it on. Or so I thought. My heart started pounding as he followed up. You just spilled some crumbs on your shirt. Cute pajamas, by the way. The room felt smaller, the shadows in the corners deeper, like eyes were peering out from them. I slammed my laptop shut, but the damage was done. He'd been watching me through a hack for who knows how long. I ripped the webcam cord out, my hand shaking so badly I could barely grip it, and spent the rest of the night huddled under my blankets, every little noise outside my window sounding like footsteps approaching. To this day, I cover every camera in my house with tape, but sometimes, late at night, I wonder if he's still out there, watching. Another chilling account was sent in by someone who was just a kid, left to babysit their younger sibling in a rural area that always felt a bit too isolated. I was 10 years old, and my parents had gone out for the evening, trusting me to watch my 7-year-old sister. We lived near an old asylum, yeah. One of those places with barbed wire fences and rumors of escapes that kept the locals on edge. The house was small, creaky, with windows that rattled in the wind like something was trying to get in. We'd been playing board games when there was a knock at the door, soft at first, then insistent. I peeked through the curtain and saw a woman standing there, disheveled, her clothes torn and her eyes wild under the porch light. She called out, asking if she could use the phone to call the hospital for a ride back. My sister clung to me, whispering that we shouldn't open the door. But the woman kept talking, her voice shifting from pleading to something almost animalistic, demanding matches, screaming about needing them right now. The air in the house turned thick with fear. I could smell the rain outside, mixing with the musty scent of our old rugs. I bolted the door, grabbed the phone, and dialed the asylum, my voice trembling as I explained. They said she'd escaped, but she was harmless. Harmless. Her moans echoed through the wood, and I imagined her lighting a fire, burning everything down. We hid in the closet until headlights finally swept the driveway. The twist? When they took her away, she looked right at me through the window and smiled, like she'd gotten what she wanted all along. This next one still gives me chills. It's from a guy who was home alone in his apartment, thinking he was safe behind locked doors. I was 19, fresh out on my own in this rundown apartment building on the edge of town. The place was cheap, but it had that vibe: dim hallways, flickering lights, neighbors you never saw. One night, I was lounging on my inflatable mattress, couldn't afford a real bed yet, watching TV when I heard keys jingling at my door. My heart skipped. No one had a key but me. The top lock clicked, then the bottom, and the door swung open. In walked this older man, arms full of bags and boxes, muttering in a language I didn't understand. He dropped everything when he saw me, his face twisting in rage, and lunged, grabbing me in a chokehold and dragging me toward the door like I was the intruder. The room spun, the air thick with his sweat, and my panic I clawed at his arms, gasping, thinking this was how I died alone, mistaken for a squatter. Suspense built as I fought back, the TV blaring in the background like some twisted soundtrack. A neighbor heard the commotion and pulled him off, but the horror didn't end there. Turns out, the leasing office had double-booked the unit, given him my key by mistake. I sued them, but every time I hear a key turn now, I bolt upright, waiting for the door to open. Here's a tale that's straight out of a nightmare, shared by someone who experienced it in their childhood home. I was around 8, and my parents had stepped out for a quick errand after sunset. The backyard was my playground, but that night, as I dragged the trash bin to the curb, the darkness felt alive, trees whispering in the breeze, shadows stretching like fingers. Under the deck, something grabbed my ankle, yanking hard, trying to pull me under. I screamed, the sound piercing the quiet neighborhood and whatever it was let go. I scrambled back inside, slamming the door, my leg bruised and heart racing. The house, usually cozy, now felt exposed, every window a potential entry point. I hid in the kitchen, peeking out, imagining a face pressed against the glass. My parents came home to find me hysterical. But when we checked, there was no one, just footprints in the dirt under the deck. The twist. Years later, a neighbor confessed there'd been reports of a homeless man living nearby, desperate and dangerous. I still check under porches before I step out. This final story builds to a revelation that will make you question every reflection you see. I had just moved into a new apartment, excited for independence, but the building was old, with creaky floors and drafts that whispered through the walls. One evening, around 8:30, as I settled in alone, the doorknob rattled. I thought it was my boyfriend surprising me, but no text, no call. Peering through the peephole, I saw nothing, but the rattling turned to scraping metal on metal, like someone prying the lock. Panic surged. The room closed in, the dim lamp casting long shadows that danced mockingly. I grabbed a knife, locked myself in the bathroom, and dialed 911, whispering my address as the door shook. Police arrived to find an elderly man outside, armed with a crowbar and knife, convinced the apartment was his old home. He'd been delusional, wandering from a nearby facility. The horror wasn't just the break-in attempt. It was learning he'd been watching the building for days, mistaking me for an intruder in his space. Now every knock sends me into a spiral, and I sleep with lights on, wondering if he's still out there, confused and vengeful. The atmosphere in that apartment lingered long after. But let's shift to another listener's account, one that involves a rural escape turning into a night of terror. I was house-sitting for friends in the countryside, miles from anyone. The kind of place where the stars are bright, but the darkness swallows everything else. Around midnight, an automated call from the sheriff's office shattered the silence. 2 armed fugitives had escaped a nearby detention center, last seen heading my way. Helicopters thrummed overhead, their spotlights slicing through the night like accusatory fingers. I barricaded doors, turned on every light, the house glowing like a beacon in the void. But it only made me feel more exposed. Every rustle outside was them, every shadow a figure creeping closer. Hours ticked by, my mind racing with scenarios breaking glass, forced entry, no escape. Dawn brought relief when news came they'd been caught. But the twist. One was found hiding in a barn just a field away, watching the house all night. I haven't stayed alone in the country since. From a different perspective. This story involves a paranormal twist that still haunts the teller. As a kid of 11, I was home with the dog while my parents ran errands. The house was new to us, unfamiliar creaks and all. A knock at the door sent the dog barking wildly through the window. I saw a man with a cute puppy, smiling. But something felt off his eyes too eager, the dog too still. I didn't open it, calling my mom instead. The knocking grew louder, insistent, the man's voice muffled but urgent. Terror built as I hid, phone clutched tight, imagining him bursting in. When my parents returned, the man was gone, but the dog. It was ours. It had escaped the yard, and the stranger was a neighbor returning it. The horror was in my paranoia, but the real twist came later. That neighbor was later arrested for luring kids with pets. My instinct saved me. Diving deeper into the unknown, this experience happened in an old office building during the holidays. I was working late on December 23, the place empty, echoes amplifying every sound. Footsteps approached down the hall slow, deliberate, like someone in no hurry. I froze at my desk, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, casting sterile shadows. The steps passed my door, then silence. Peeking out, I saw the far door swing open and slam shut, no one there. The air turned cold, heavy with an unseen presence. I locked myself in, music blaring to drown the fear, but my mind raced ghost, intruder, the twist. Building records showed a worker had died there years ago, alone on a holiday shift. I quit soon after. This one involves family ties gone wrong, adding a layer of betrayal to the fear. At 22, I let my shady uncle crash at my bungalow after he begged for help. He was jittery, paranoid, hiding something. Alone one night after he left, 3 rough men pounded on the door, demanding their stuff. The house felt like a trap, wheels of my chair squeaking as I navigated to confront them. I'm disabled, small, vulnerable. They loomed, eyes hard, but I handed over the hidden bag of drugs and weapons, my voice steady despite the terror. They left, but the atmosphere clung every noise a return visit. The twist. My uncle had set me up, using my home as a drop point. Mom cut him off, but I still lock every door obsessively. Wrapping up with a story that blurs reality and the supernatural. As a child, I was swinging in the backyard alone, the tree branches groaning like warnings. Suddenly, an invisible force yanked me back, dumping me on the ground, just as the log holding the swing split and crashed down. The air was still, no wind, no one around. The house loomed silent, but I felt watched. Parents dismissed it as coincidence, but the twist? That tree had been planted over an old grave, unmarked. Something saved me or pulled me away for its own reasons. I avoid swings now. These accounts build a tapestry of isolation and dread, but the overarching revelation. Many of these storytellers later discovered connections, escaped patients, mistaken identities, hidden watchers that prove we're never as alone as we think. Sleep tight.